This is the TyePod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD. So this is Ty Martin. I'm visiting with Yael Hayes, and she is an authenticity coach. And we're just going to discuss a little bit about her background and my experience with sort of meditation and the authenticity space, and kind of have a back and forth discussion about it. So happy to have you on, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, cheers. I'm really excited to have this discussion with you. It's been building up, so I'm super excited to see where it takes us.
Yeah, same here. So I wanted to start out a little bit about your background and what authenticity coaching is and what your goals are with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Yael Hayes. I have, you know, been working in the coaching space for a very long time. First, it was weight loss coaching, then but it was always highly psychological. Then it went into CrossFit coaching, and then I built a CrossFit community. And then there was this one moment where I just realized after, a year of basically coaching every single class, I had about 1,095 classes at the end of that year that I'd coached. And the one thing that really got to me was like, hey, I have not had one class where someone left with a frown on their face. Everyone was smiling. Everyone
Hmm.
was feeling in the flow. Everyone was having a great day after that. So, and I've had reports of people kind of share, hey, I've come in and I was in a horrible mood, and just I mean, yeah, maybe the workout wasn't fun, it was hard, but like your energy really changed something in me today, and I actually ended up getting a new client, pulling a deal on board, all of that. So it was really, really interesting um to see that happen. And then I was like, wait, what's going on there? Right? What am I actually doing? And then it suddenly dawned on me that, hey, this is because I'm being authentic, and because I'm giving people the
Yeah,
space to be genuine themselves, and seeing them in that and appreciating them in that, which I don't think is done enough. So
right,
that's kind of how I got
right.
there.
Definitely not. And I know that authenticity, people have this kind of high level, approach and look into that. But what is that for you really? Like where have you gone with authenticity?
Ooh, okay, we're going deep
Deep
already.
dive right away.
I like it. Let me just put you a level up here so I can see you
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
So for me, I'm not going to do any gatekeeping here. I don't see the sense in that. So I've studied, throughout my entire life, uh, some very, very old wisdom, and I've spoken to people that you cannot find if you do not know where they are. Like, they're impossible to find. These are lost teachers, people that are just like you. They need to find you. The universe needs to bring you together. Otherwise, you will never know they exist. And it's been really interesting because I've learned through that, and also through meditation and the downloads, or like the information that came through in these meditations, that we are living in a 15-dimensional system. So we're talking, the normal 3 dimensions. Well, first of all, you have to be outside of something to be able to perceive it. So the fact that we're
Mm,
seeing the 3D means we are actually in the 4D.
okay,
Otherwise, we
makes
couldn't
sense.
look at it. We'd be in it, right?
Like you
We'd
have to have
be
that
it.
kind of objective position.
Exactly. And so actually there's much more than that. There are 15 dimensions, and then there are 3 primal sound and light fields. And so what happens is, and this is all Chinese maybe to some people here, but I'll try to explain it as well as I can. None of this is super relevant right now. Just this next bit. What happens is you have source consciousness, all that is, right? Call it God, whatever you want, universe. Well, God is more accurate in that sense. But you have source, and source consciousness starts to individuate itself from dimension 12 all the way down into the 3D. So it individuates itself more and more and more until it becomes you, an individual, right? And so on the way down, it leaves a little bit of consciousness in each dimension. So we actually have a 12-dimensional consciousness built in our system. And that consciousness, to align with that means to align with the divine that is free of the fears or the mechanisms that we are dealing with in the three-dimensional space.
Mhm.
And all of this may sound super outlandish to some people, but it's just to kind of help build the basis of what we're about to be discussing here. And so that means that you are source consciousness walking within your own reality, which is what you're projecting, right?
Mhm.
And everything that you are seeing or that you're experiencing is there for a very specific reason for you to experience what you need to experience so that you can align more and more and more with that 12 dimensional consciousness that you have. The closer
Mhm.
you get to that, the more effortless life in the three-dimensional space becomes, because you are going closer and closer towards the truth. And the reason why that is relevant, and this is really what authenticity can do for you, is just imagine an electrical wire. Let's say this is a great analogy. Just imagine an electrical wire, right?
Mhm.
On the electrical wire, if it's naked, but nothing, no resistance, electricity flows beautifully, right?
Right.
Nothing holding it back. Imagine that's lighting up I don't know, a tower, right? That tower is going to be
Mhm.
fully lit. Okay, no problem there. Now, if we put in a resistance, a resistor,
Mhm.
it's going to slow down the electricity,
Right.
right? The flow is going to have some trouble, right? So the lights are going to maybe dim a little bit, maybe
Mhm.
flicker. If you put in more resistance, it's going to go down even more, right?
Right.
And and if you put in enough, it's going to be so low that you can't see it anymore. It's going to go out,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Now, we are bioelectrical beings.
Mhm.
So when we resist ourselves, guess what? The energy starts
It's gonna
going
be
slower, right?
disrupting the flow, right? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And if we're saying, yes, we are the projectors of our reality, it's not that we're taking it in, it's actually we're projecting it out. This is why everyone
Mhm.
has a different perspective, per
Mhm.
your own spection, your own seeing. That is a perspective, right?
Right.
A reality that exists per your view of it, right? So
Exactly.
if we're saying, okay, well, we are projecting this reality, that means the light is coming from us. If we
Mhm.
are resisting ourselves, well, that
It's
light's
gonna
going to
be a
start to
dim.
flicker.
Exactly. I mean,
Right?
that's such a great analogy, I think, because starting out when I was in engineering, we did a circuits class, right, where you're talking about like
There you go.
resistors and current flow and everything, and
There you go.
that resonates perfectly.
Right? It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it's also not a coincidence, that we're talking and you have that background. Like
Right.
things like this don't
Well, it's
happen. There are no accidents.
right, right. Kind of
So
that purposeful, yeah. That
yeah.
yeah, that
So
makes
for
total
me,
sense.
authenticity means wiping the wire clean. It's
Yeah.
creating the naked wire. It's taking out that resistance so that your reality can start shining a lot more brightly and can start
Mhm.
reflecting who you truly are. And
Sort of a
the
cleansing almost
idea,
in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. 100%. And the idea here is like, this is where people struggle because they're like, but what if I don't like who I am?
Mhm.
Or what if I don't feel good enough as who I am, or all of that? Well, that
Yes.
just means you're missing information.
Mhm. Right.
To
I
me,
mean,
that means you're missing information.
that connects so well too with the disability space, right? Because it's like this
Yeah,
journey of acceptance, right? Like you may not like it, you may not, really want to deal with it, but for whatever reason, that's part of you and your
yeah,
journey and your. I mean, that's like kind of how your wire is shaped in a way. So
yeah.
yeah,
And I
I think
want to
that
say something to
resonates.
this. There's something that I'm sorry for cutting you off. I get
No, no, you're
excited.
good.
I'm just so passionate about
Same.
it. But like, there, that's awesome. There is something that I really want to say about this because it is so relevant for people to understand, right? So, everybody that's watching, including us, right? If we're looking at nature, just take a minute to imagine nature if you don't have it right next to you. But if you're looking at nature and the absolute balance that it has, the perfection in which it exists, right? You will see that nothing in nature is redundant. everything has a very specific purpose. And for that specific purpose, it's perfect. It is absolutely perfectly designed to do what it is meant to do in this reality,
Mhm.
right? We, because we wear socks and we're in four walls, we believe for some reason that it's different for us, that we're not part of nature. That is an entirely, completely ridiculous illusion. We are nature. We are part of nature. All of us is nature, right? So
Right.
the same goes for us. If you are born in any certain way with a disability, with I don't know, a lack of money, maybe
Mhm.
that's your thing that you're exploring this life. Maybe disability is the thing you're exploring with this life.
Yeah.
Maybe a stutter is what you're exploring with this life, or maybe, you know, a war with your parents is what you're exploring. So whatever your
Right.
topic is that you chose to explore in this life as a soul when you came here, you are perfectly built for this purpose. You are
Right.
100% perfect the way you are. Otherwise, you would be different,
That makes complete sense. I mean, that's
right?
and it goes to the whole individuality thing, right? Like, no, I mean, like we do
100%.
have all of these innate similar things as humans, as beings, but at the same time, there's all of these little subtle differences, changes. Like, I mean, and that's why, like, even someone with the same diagnosis, like, they don't experience the symptoms and the progression the same way. I mean, it's
Perspective again.
exactly right.
Perspective. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
I think, you know, that's what I mean by wiping the wire clean. Is just
mhm,
understanding that all of this is for a reason. It is absolutely designed. You are perfectly designed to do exactly
mhm,
what you need to do in this life. If you were different, all that is would not be all that is,
right.
exactly as it is, without you being exactly as you are. You are unbelievably important to all that is,
Mhm,
because it wouldn't be this way without you. So the
right.
fact that people have a disability, you know, I have seen people with disabilities do things that people without them would never do, would never be able to achieve in their life,
Mhm,
ever. I have seen people do unbelievable things, truly. I mean, just to give you an example here, right?
yeah.
There was a person in the Olympics, in the Paralympics, that had no hands and
Mhm,
no legs, and he was a swimmer.
right.
He swam in the Paralympics. If you told this to a person with arms and legs, they would think you are absolutely nuts. They would tell you, no, you can't do it. This is
Right.
impossible. How are you going to stay afloat? All of that BS.
That's the
Excuse my French,
entire
but it is.
ableism. Yeah. Yep. It's that
Cool, cool.
whole, yeah.
That person had the perspective that he said, okay, yes, I chose this body. There is a reason I chose this body. I am a competitive person. So apparently, my theme, or maybe my purpose, is to change people's minds by
Mhm.
doing something that they think is impossible.
Right. Right. And I think, I've seen so many examples where people with disabilities have, that's those kinds of things. And it's just like,
Endless.
like able-bodied people should not assume anything, about what
Yeah.
anyone can do, to be honest,
Yeah.
so it's just like
And
you need to be open-minded and realize that that's
100%.
yeah.
And you know, the crazy thing is, so there's this beautiful saying that is, if you, I think, what was it? If you speak to a king will appear. Do you know that saying?
Mhm. I'm
Which for me,
loosely familiar.
right, like that encapsulates my way of coaching to the T. Because personally, just as a coach, as an authenticity coach, I usually
Mhm.
work with leaders, with people that are in transition. I don't care whether you have a disability or not. You're a human. That's it, right? You're a
Right.
soul. You have a contract that you were
Exactly.
meant to come here, and there you go. I don't care about everything else. I don't see these limits. So whether you're in transition, maybe you're a solopreneur just starting out, and maybe you're a mum that is looking for a new direction in life. So
Right.
whatever that is, right, where you at, I
Right.
work with these people. And the reason why my coaching works is i'm I can see people's blueprint energetically. So that means
Yeah.
I can see where you are out of alignment, and maybe you're betraying your true self and your naked wire,
Hmm.
and putting resistance in where maybe you don't need to, you know.
Right. Right.
And I can see who you are in a divine state,
Right.
and I can help you get get there with specific techniques, right? And so one of my favorite things to do, and one of my techniques, is to
Mhm.
actually speak to people to their blueprint version. Because
Okay.
what does that do? It creates the space for them to rise into it,
That
right?
makes sense.
And there's a beautiful story that I want to share here. Are you open for
Hmm.
that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I love the whole story space.
Oh, amazing. Okay, you're
Yeah.
gonna love this one then. So, this is in a Hebrew school, in a Jewish school,
Hmm.
and there's a young boy that comes to that school, and he's a good boy, but like that day he is chaotic. He's throwing things around the room. He's screaming, like he's making a mess, right? Disrupting class. And
Yeah.
so the teacher's like, "Look, I can't. This is crazy. I can't do this anymore." So he takes him to the head rabbi.
Hmm.
And the head rabbi, very wise old man, sits there and he looks at him and he's like, "Okay, what did you do?" And the teacher says, "Well, he was disruptive and he was shouting and chaotic, whatever." Right? And the head rabbi sits there and he's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what to do with you. Okay,
Hmm.
go home, come back tomorrow. I'm going to know how to punish you then." Right? I need to think about it.
Hmm.
The boy goes home. Obviously, he is in panic. He has no
I
idea
can
what punishment
imagine.
is gonna. Oh my god! I mean, this is the rabbi. Like, ooh. And then he comes back the next day. I love this part. He comes back the next day, and he sits in front of the rabbi like a good boy.
Hmm.
And the rabbi gives him a gift,
That was
and the
a
little boy is
shocker.
like,
Hmm.
"What the? What? How? Why?" I was bad. I was bad in class. You
Hmm.
registered that, right? Like, what is going on here?
Hmm.
And the rabbi looks at him calmly and he says, "I'm not giving you a gift for the one day you were bad. I am giving you a gift for all the other days you were good."
See, that's wow. That's exactly. And you know what? I think too often people like find that negative, that one thing that happened in thousands of events, right? And like that's the one thing they stay like locked in
It's,
on.
yeah.
So it's yeah.
And
And
I'm
I
going to
was
give
thinking
you,
too, like almost the night leading up to finding out what the punishment is was punishment enough anyway. So yeah,
100%. And I'm
yeah,
going to give you one more twist to this story.
yeah.
Both boy and rabbi and teacher are you.
Wow.
They
That's
all live in us. It's the one and the freaking same person. This dialogue is
that is a
happening in us
twist. Wow.
all the
That
freaking time.
yeah. That's your plot twist in your own novel, right? Basically.
Yeah,
Wow. That hits. Yeah.
I know. So it goes back to this understanding again that we are the projectors of our reality. I've seen this happen in my life. The more we accept ourselves, the more we understand ourselves and
Hmm.
understand why we're here, the purpose of why we're here, and we align with that. We allow ourselves the courage and the love and the self-respect to align with that with our actions. And that's called integrity. The more
Hmm.
we see our world change. I have seen this in my life, especially for me personally in dating, where
Yeah.
you know I was attracting men that were very dismissive, abusive, maybe
Hmm.
toxic, people with very small anxious thinking, things like that. And technically they're all good people, but it didn't fit me. It wasn't a match for me. And
Right.
I if someone's toxic, it's just because they're dealing with their own stuff. And then a person can make a decision of whether it is right for them to stay, which obviously no,
Right.
most cases, right? Or whether
Right.
they have the self-respect to leave that relationship. So that's a different conversation. But every time after being with someone, instead of kind of sulking and saying like, all men are horrible and, screw
Yeah.
you and all of that,
Which
I was like,
which
okay,
there's legitimate reasons for that, but
of course.
yeah.
But instead of that, I said, okay, this is my reality. I'm gonna own this reality. I'm gonna own my perspective. I feel how I feel because of my definition of the moment.
Mhm.
So if I went out of a relationship and I defined this as the worst thing that happened to me, that's how it will feel.
Right.
But what if we defined it differently and we said, hey, actually, this is the biggest opportunity for growth I have had in the last, I don't know, 20
Mm.
years. It'll
Yeah.
be that way. And then we'll start looking for proof that it is that way. And that's going to
Right.
change what we see and how we learn. And so I really took it upon myself in these moments to learn whatever I can learn to understand why this had to happen, why not
Mhm.
to happen to me, but for me, why I projected, created, manifested this situation into my life. Right? There's
Right.
a reason.
Right.
Again, nothing in nature is redundant. Everything
Right.
has a
And if
purpose.
it's the lens that you're viewing it through too, right? I mean,
A
you
100%.
like so many things, even dating, but other life experience too, like losing a
A
job. I mean,
100%.
there's just so many things that if you take it in that way and adjust, your perspective and take it as a learning and growth opportunity,
100%.
right? Yeah, like
Exactly.
that
And so the
really,
more, yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
that really that resonates with me too, going through this,
That's awesome.
my PhD program and everything. It was like you're gonna have, setbacks and challenges. And like for me, being like a straight A student in high school, it was like, well, you're gonna have a couple of C plus,
Yeah.
grades going through. And I did, but it was like each time you keep moving forward, you keep learning. I mean, that's kind of a lifelong learning effort
Exactly.
with everything that you do. So yeah, I think that's such
And
a
I,
good way to approach it.
it's just to kind of finish the thought from before, like every time I did learn out of these situations, I saw the quality, sounds a bit weird, but I did, I'll call it quality for lack of a better
Yeah.
term. I saw the quality of men that I was meeting improve a lot. Where
Mhm.
at this point now, I'm meeting absolute gentlemen, which is my standard. But it can only
Yeah.
be my standard because I have a standard to myself that I'm going to respect myself throughout whatever comes.
Right.
Like that is that's there's a non-negotiable, uncompromising, like, self-respect is
Right.
basics. And so now that's being reflected, right? Projecting that
Right. Right.
self-respect, and that self-respect is being reflected, right?
Do you see that almost as like a manifestation thing, right? Like you're
100%.
yeah, you're
We are
attracting
manifesting
what
all the
you
time. You're
yeah,
manifesting that's what you're doing. That's what I mean by projection.
yeah,
You're manifesting.
right.
And sometimes, the things that we want may not be the things that we really actually need in the
That's a good
moment
point.
to grow. So that manifestation might be a bit delayed. There is a time lag
Mhm.
happening. We're still living in a time matrix, right? And there is a really good reason for that. We are the only beings, as far as I know, um,
Right.
that have the chance, being embodied in a human body, to, and this is going to hit, experience their own creation as it's happening.
Mhm. Wow.
That's why
That's
we have a time lag with manifestation. That's why things don't just happen instantly for most people, unless you're super enlightened.
right,
That's
right.
right. But we have we have the we have the opportunity to actually say, okay, I'm thinking these thoughts and putting out that frequency. Okay, it's going to take a little bit until this manifests. Until then, I
Mhm.
have time to think this over, to feel into it, to have a gut feeling about it, and to maybe see, okay, do I want to stick with this decision or do I want to change it? And that distance that we create between thinking something and then
Mhm.
committing to manifesting it, that is something you can work on with meditation.
Right. Okay.
You can create more space to be able to look at the quality of your unmanifested creation and say, okay, is this what I want? Is this in alignment? And if not, okay, let me change it, let me tweak it,
That's
and then
such
put
a
out something else.
That's such a fascinating point you make there, because I think as someone who's so new to the meditation space and everything, like I can sort of start to see where, that can happen. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's interesting. In my example, like the health situation forced me into a place where I was kind of like shut down as far as like I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak. I was in ICU, in a bed
Mhm.
for like 30 plus 40 days. And all this there is like your thoughts and I mean, like everything is kind of sort of stuck.
Yeah.
So I think that was a moment where it was like, okay, this is another opportunity to grow, to learn, to realize that, you know,
Okay.
yes, I was going one direction, but I need to go a different direction because things are out of balance, right? So it's like things just reach in and take control, and then you realize, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. And so
Yeah.
this whole enlightened kind of self-realization,
Yeah.
self-love journey is something I
Yeah.
think everybody goes through in one way or another. But I'm curious,
Yeah.
like your meditation technique, like how has meditation evolved for you just in, I don't know, from when you first started to now, and how do you see that like going forward maybe?
I mean, first off, I gotta say, I have a million questions to you right now, but we're gonna keep them for maybe the next
Definitely.
podcast
We'll
another
have a
time. But like,
series of, yeah,
I'm super curious. Uh, for me, I used to have this, and this is kind of feeding into one of the things I wanted to say about what you just spoke of. You needed a complete break. You're like your subconscious or your higher self pulled the emergency brake so that
it
you
did.
could realign, so that you would be in a quiet space where you had to sit with these thoughts. You didn't
Right.
have anything else you could do, right? That's the reason, right? Again, there's a reason for everything that's happening. So you were put into that so you could actually realign and realize what actually was going on and what you want and how you want to move forward and who you are, more of who
Right.
you are, right? And that's what meditation does. And some people need that emergency brake. I've had that emergency brake.
Hmm.
And some people need it in a different way, or some
Right.
people have other topics again that they're
Some type of
exploring.
reset button, right? That gets pressed. And yeah.
Yeah, some kind of reset that gets pressed. Exactly. And for me, like I I was a very when I was born, and just kind of remembering, the first couple moments of when I came, I was always very meditative. I was a little Buddha, like that's what they called me. And then growing up, suddenly you're thrust into your family, a family constellation, and that can be really hard. Um, especially, I'm just kind of feeling into this a little bit, but I could imagine that, especially if you are born with a disability, your family is immediately going to start treating you this way,
Right.
right? And so that identity would get edged into you, but maybe you don't feel that way about yourself,
Right.
you know, maybe
That's
that you
that's a good
have more
point.
potential, you know, and so for a person like that, it may be a topic of breaking out of that role, and
Hmm.
like the swimmer in the Paralympics, and actually
Right.
saying like, all of you are wrong, I am right. This is how it is.
Exactly.
I mean,
And you know what? There's such a difference in that too, just real quick. Like when you're
go for
born
it.
with it, when you grow up with it, it's so different than when, say, you're in your 30s or 40s and you're in an accident or
And it
something
hits,
happens and
yeah,
it's there. I mean, I find it so interesting that like it's some people have that and so they accept it, and so it's part of them from day one
yeah,
versus this other way, which I mean, it takes a whole nother
equally,
level of
yeah,
self-growth and sort of like going through that whole
yeah,
process like you're talking about.
yeah. I mean that they're both, a real challenge,
Hmm.
in a world where opinions are so set,
Right.
in a
Right.
word where in a world where where people don't really understand the term of unconditional love, because unconditional love to
That's
me, and that's how I really try to treat people, is not having an opinion about someone. Because as soon as you have an
expectations,
opinion, not even an expectation, an
but an
opinion, as
opinion.
soon as you
Yeah.
have an opinion about someone, you are labeling them. You're putting a limit on them. Every label is a limit. Every label. Which is
It's true.
why, we're cleaning the wire, you're
Mm,
taking the labels away, suddenly everything can flow, right? And
right.
I've seen this express itself in many different ways, from spontaneous healings to just suddenly making million. Like, it depends on what your topic is again.
Yeah.
um but for me, I, at some point, I've always felt drawn to finding some way to find peace within myself. I grew up
Mhm.
in a very difficult family constellation where, it had nothing to do with disability per se, and I'm not going to guess exactly what that could be like for someone with a
Right.
disability, but for me, um like, what my situation would have been like if I had a disability. But
Hmm.
I was born with kind of a sense of calm about myself, where everyone around me was complete chaos, and so that put me into a situation where I had to be the mediator from a very young age. And we're talking about parents separating, my younger sister being born at the same time, my older sister being anorexic and going through all types of eating disorders and sports disorders and addiction, like sports addictions and things. And and me kind of being the only one that really understands, like, okay, how can I be peaceful,
Hmm.
you know and suddenly, my mom was she's super into yoga and alternative medicine. She's a psychiatrist, but she does everything. She does not have limits on, hey, like, whatever medicine works, that's what we're gonna do,
And that's what we're
right?
doing. Hmm.
That's what we're doing. I don't care if it has a, whatever. If if breathing and yoga works for you, that's exactly what we're doing
Right.
in therapy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she
And
does
that's
that
not
for
saying
the
that
people.
it's a solution for everybody, but if it works for you,
Exactly.
then it
If it
works. Yeah.
works for you, exactly, nothing else is relevant, right? And
And you know
nobody
what? That
can
goes
care
back to
because they're
your
not living your life.
labeling. Exactly. And that goes back to what you're saying about labels too. Like if
100%,
yep,
100%.
I totally agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, the meditation was really finding the way back to myself
Hmm.
and to my peace and to the person that I am, and taking out the resistances. And
Right.
the reason, or the way that it worked for me, and the way that it's now working for my clients as well,
Hmm.
is, and this is why meditation is so powerful, is, I I started with 5 minutes a day, literally. I was like, and
Yeah.
some days I couldn't do it. But if I did it, when I did it for a long enough time, I couldn't do it for one day suddenly, or I didn't do it for one day. I mean, everyone
Hmm.
has 5 minutes, right? But if I
Right.
didn't, something happened, whatever. Um, I started missing it. I was like, oh no,
You need
I
that
need to
back.
meditate. I want
Hmm.
that. I need that. It's the same with, exercise or any other habit, that, like, after a while, if you're doing it long enough, you're like, oh shit, I didn't do that today.
Right.
And then you're
Right.
like,
And then you're
wait,
like,
no, my
wait,
body's craving it, like, yeah,
right.
can't go without.
You're going through
And
my meditation withdrawals, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that for me was really powerful. And then I had the chance to go to a meditation weekend that was on
Hmm.
donation when I was quite young. So I was about 15, 16, something
Hmm.
like that. And I was able to go to that like 3 day elongated weekend. You
Hmm.
come on a Friday, you leave on a Monday or something like that. Don't know, it was Sunday or something like that. And it was a silent retreat. It was 3 days in absolute silence. And I was just curious because I'm like, silence. It's an interesting concept. I don't know what it
Hmm.
feels like to not speak for 3 days straight.
Right. Right.
What
And what's
what's that
interesting there
gonna
is
do to me?
it's not silence when you think about it. I mean, maybe it's audio silence, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but and then I sat down, and in the first moment, in the first session, and this was a beautiful center in the Swiss Alps, super remote. You hear, cows in the morning and things. It's
Mhm.
really funny. And but again, it was donation based, so luckily I could afford it, in a way.
Right.
Um, but I went there, and the first session I sit down, and everything's happening in my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be really hard. Right. And then suddenly they said, okay, we know that you have thoughts. It's a lot. It's okay. Imagine them as passing clouds in the sky, passing
Mhm.
clouds in the sky. It's a thought. It's okay. It can be there, and then it'll keep on going.
Then it's passing. Yeah.
Sit. Exactly. And the idea is to sit and to know that you are sitting. That's all. So that basically
Yeah.
means check into the body, feel in the moment what's going on, and that will help you shut off your mind. We have
Mhm.
come over the years now. I'm almost at maybe 4,000 hours of meditation at this point,
Mhm.
and probably more, but like 4,000 consciously counted hours.
Mhm.
and and we've come to the point where throughout my day, I do not think. I have no thoughts, in a
Mhm.
sense that it's noisy. I'm
Right.
thinking precisely. I have a focus about my thoughts. So no thoughts just passes my mind without me noticing it. I'm very
Right.
aware of what thought's going to come up next, right?
That's
But
sort of a living in the moment type of approach, it
pretty
seems
much
like.
it's just being
Yeah.
very aware of what noise your mind creates and knowing
Mhm.
how to manage it. It's disciplining your mind.
Mhm.
And the power in that is once you can do that and the noise is shut down, there's a calm that sets in. That's inner peace where you are quiet here,
Right.
right? And when you are quiet here, you can you have the ability, or you have the power to react and respond in a much more aligned way. Because let's
Mhm.
say something's happening in your reality, and you would usually, if you don't have that space between what's happening and how you want to react impulsively, right? If you don't have that
Right.
space, you're just going to react in any way.
Right.
And then that reaction is going to set loose another reaction and another
It's
reaction and another, right?
as they say, a
It's
chain
forever.
reaction basically, right? Like there's
100%.
yeah. Yeah.
And, it's you're reacting in an impulsive way that maybe is coming from fear, or maybe it's coming from pain, or from this or from that. That
Mhm.
other person can't know this. They don't know that you're in a fight, for example, that you're reacting
Right.
because you're afraid or because you're in pain. They're going to
Mhm.
take your reaction at face value. Again, it's your projection, but like still,
Right.
right? They're going to
Right.
mirror back to you what you are actually putting out as opposed
That's
to what it
true.
feels like,
And
right?
that's how I think so many conflicts happen in the first place.
100%, right? And
Yeah.
so if we can instead create that distance between what is happening and, okay, yes, this just happened in my reality, I just manifested
Mhm.
this, how do I wish to react? What factors would be playing into my impulsive reaction right now? Do I want these factors to be involved or not? Making these decisions within a split second, and then reacting in alignment with what you actually want. Because I
Mhm.
will argue that in a situation like this, let's say someone triggered you,
Mhm.
if it's your mum, say, right? If it's your mum or someone you love, you don't want to, you know, pop off at them. You don't want to be
Right.
angry at them. You don't want to create a fight. You don't want to fight with them. What do you
Right.
actually want? You want peace. You want to feel seen. You want love. You want a hug from them, maybe. Maybe you're in
Mhm.
pain. Maybe you're feeling alone. So what would it be like to have the space to say, okay, well, this just came, but what do I actually want? Okay, I want peace and I want love, and I want to feel seen. I'm feeling hurt and
Mm.
not seen right now. What can I say that will honor that feeling and
Right.
get me to where I actually want to be? That's the power of meditation.
Wow. I mean, I think that was so like needed in today's world with everything. I just feel like there's
Huge.
so much, it's just black and white sort of
Yeah.
thing where people are always, like saying things that they don't necessarily mean. And it's not going to be
Yeah.
conducive to finding a solution in the first place.
No.
But I
And
think that's so
it's not in
great
alignment
too.
with what they want.
No, it's not. But when you
You know.
mentioned, like you were doing 5 minutes a day, that's exactly how I started doing. Like I
Yeah.
was like, well, I'll just try a 10-minute session here and there. And some
Easy.
days it doesn't work, but at the same time, it was so interesting to think about, like, I'm on this ventilator, right, which sounds like kind of the scuba tank or whatever, but it's like, well, that noise is always there. But going through this whole meditation process, it's like, well, yes, that noise is there, but I can also still process. I can control. I can, actually pay attention to, like, the lungs filling up and
Yeah.
exhaling, and that's, I think, conflict
Yep.
resolution is so much easier
Yeah.
when you're doing that and realizing that
Amazing.
you can't control everything around you and your environment and what happens, but you're right. Like, if you focus on like your core, your projection, how you're manifesting what's going on, I just think that's so much more powerful, and it's just like, it's pretty amazing when you can tap into that.
Yeah. And it's really, it starts with just taking full ownership.
Hmm.
And there's so much power in that, like it whenever I'm going through a tough situation, or I'm feeling
Hmm.
kind of my energy's out of line for some
Hmm.
reason, I'm anxious maybe, and I'm like, wait a minute, yo, this is your reality. You're projecting it. What the heck are
Right.
you afraid of?
Right.
Take responsibility. You're projecting it. Okay,
Right.
what do I actually want? And for me, this is a big one. For example, what do I want? I want to, right now, I'm not feeling safe, let's say, right? I'm in a situation
Yeah.
where I'm not feeling safe. Okay, Yale, this is your reality. This is
Hmm.
your projection. What do you actually want? You want to feel safe? Okay, let's speak it into existence. Speak and think in alignment with that. And so
Hmm.
I will sit there with the understanding that water in our body, the water in our body, is
Hmm.
super, it's being structured by our frequency.
Hmm.
um and if I speak to myself and I command the water in my body to structure itself according to a certain frequency of the words that I'm saying and the voice that I'm
Hmm.
using, it will change its structure. And when it changes its structure, the proteins are going to have a different are going to express themselves differently, and that will change how I look, how I feel, and the energy I put out, which again would change my projection and my reality.
That's such a fascinating thing. I think linking it back to your, like, actual biological structure, right?
It is
Because, I mean,
100%
like
scientific.
my background is studying proteins like subatomic. I mean, even below that, right? Like we're
Yep.
looking at, like, electrons and atoms and how they interact
Words.
and
Yep.
attraction, repulsion. I mean, you're talking about,
Yep.
and you're talking about almost like you're sending brain signals throughout the
Yep.
body, and that
Yep.
makes so much sense. You can link that to the
Yep.
actual, you know, like,
It's
nano
directly
level
correlated.
structure that people
Yep.
don't. It's just mind blowing to think about that, and
And we had
it's all connected, right? Like, it's not like my thoughts and everything are, they have no impact on the function and behavior of the system. It's like you're saying about nature,
everything
right? Like,
connected.
it's all like a synergistic
Everything is
thing.
connected.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's all you. That's the thing.
Right.
It
Right.
is one consciousness. It is one thing.
Like,
And
one
that is
complete being. Yeah.
exactly, that is where people run into trouble, because many of us, most of us, 99% are still thinking in duality.
Right.
99% are not owning their reality, and they see themselves maybe as a victim, or why did this happen to me, or this or that. And it's like, okay,
Right.
well, ask yourself, why did this happen to you?
Yeah.
And here's a thought that I would love to share that might be helpful, right? The reality that you're seeing,
Hmm.
right? That you're projecting, you've projected out, that's already a done manifestation. It is already in the past. It is done. It's finished. You've already projected.
Right.
That's it. That's a manifested thought right there.
That's
Right here.
happened. Yeah.
It's done. So if you dwell on it, and this is why I find typical Western, you know, like psychology or
Hmm.
therapy, that system
Hmm.
quite problematic. If you dwell on it and you repeat it and open that wound again and again and again, you are taking it from the past back into the present.
Right. And I mean, in the future
It's
too, right? Because it's
and
going to show
possibly
up again.
well, it may not, But
Yeah, yeah.
what happens when you're bringing it back into the present? You're in that frequency again. That frequency
Mhm.
affects your body again. The body doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future. It's living in the now. It thinks it's going through that situation again now. So you are
Right.
re-imprinting that trauma into your body every time you dwell on
So
something.
all of those cellular processes and reactions and everything that's going on, it's like it's happening again, and your body's in
It's
that
happening.
that
Yeah,
complete stress mode
exactly.
again. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the issue there, the problem that I see many people having, many of my clients having, is that because of the system that we grew up in, seeing bad news everywhere and all of that,
Mhm.
we are programmed to be gluttons for punishment and suffering. It feels
Right.
weird to us to be happy, to be okay. Ooh, there must be something lurking. It can't be that good. It can't be that perfect.
Mhm.
It can't be flowing that effortlessly. Where am I? Where is the,
It's
where's the,
it's this negative driven society that we're in.
it's
That's
always there.
yeah.
And it's very hard for people, when I tell people, like, hey, did you know you actually have the ability to simply let suffering go? Like if someone is angry and they're in the emotion, let's say, right, of a thing that happened in the past, right? So let's say they're super angry. I can say, like, you can make a choice right now to let that emotion go completely. People look at me
Right.
like I'm nuts
And
because they don't understand how to let go of an emotion like that.
mhm.
But I've done that. I
And do
do
you feel
this with my
like
clients.
it's not so much a like that, the idea of toxic positivity where it's almost exaggerated, or it's not really authentically what's going on, but this is not that. This is just letting go of the negative
So
ones.
there is a difference, right? So toxic positivity, we're saying we're almost lying things away. We're like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
everything is great, everything in this.
Right.
No, I'm not telling you to do that because that makes no sense. It's not authentic, right?
Right.
Authenticity is about feeling what is in the moment, feeling
What
your truth
really
in
is
the moment,
legitimately there. Yeah.
and then taking responsibility, owning it, and acting in alignment with what you want.
Right.
That's
Right. I
that's
think that's an important distinction for sure, because I know
very
that
important distinction.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
And I know
that's
how easy it is
empowering.
to write it off, but it's different.
It's very different because one situation puts you at a disempowered position,
Mhm.
right? If you're saying, yes, no, just lie it away, everything's great, fantastic,
Right.
that anger hasn't gone anywhere. It's still in your
No,
system.
no.
It's still affecting your body just the same, whether
Right.
you believe in,
Y
unicorns in that moment instead or not, like it's still
right.
the same, still the truth. But if you say, okay, you know what? Yes, let me acknowledge the anger. Let me feel
Mhm.
it. It's here. It's real. What do I want to do with it?
Right.
What do I want to do with it? How do I want to channel it?
And
What
that's
feels right for me?
that's
Right? What do
something that
I
we have
actually want?
control over, right? Like so many
Exactly.
things, people don't have any control or say in the matter, but this is one of the things that they always do. I mean, like,
Yeah. Well, that's
if
the
you're
thing,
able to
right?
channel that. Yeah.
And again, I'm just gonna mirror what you just said. You said so many things
Yeah.
people don't have control over. I disagree. It is your reality. If you own it at one point in your
Mhm.
journey, whether that's today, whether that's in 20 years when you've reached full enlightenment, you
Yeah.
will have control over your reality.
Mhm.
Not at
Good
maybe
point.
the things that are happening, right, in your reality, but
Right.
you will have full control on how you respond. And that response is going to shape how you're going forward.
That's exactly, I think indirectly that's where I was headed with that, but you just
Right.
like that because it's this perception, right? That like the world is on fire,
100%.
everything around you is like crashing down, but
100%.
it's you, it's your
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
perspective, your feelings, and your reality to how that's all happening. Yeah.
Like to give you an idea, at the beginning of the year, and I mean, we could speak forever, but we've been at it
True.
for a while.
True. Right.
But
Right. And
to
then
just give you this last,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that we can definitely, think about more discussions in the future on these things, because
100%, that would be
it's
amazing.
deep dive into a lot of
Deep.
interesting things.
Yeah, we went deep.
So we started. Hey, that's kind of what I'm known for. It seems like at this point now, but
There we
that's
go.
the way to do it.
Right, exactly. I'm not interested in small talk because it makes no sense to
Right,
me.
right.
Um, so and this is how I work with my clients as well. Is like I don't bullshit. Like give me the real juicy things because that's where the work
Right.
is. And that's where we can really start seeing
Well,
shifts
that's
in your
that's where the
reality.
change, yeah,
That's
exactly.
where it is. Like if you're afraid of it, you should probably be doing it. Like that's
Mhm.
my, you know, um
Good point.
because that will take the most amount of courage, and courage equals self-love directly. So the more
Right, and
self-love, the better. Right.
that's so much what I'm about. Just
Yeah,
a quick story. I met,
go for it.
basically re-met a friend that was, that I'd kind of known from before, and she kind of helped me with this whole sort of self-love process, and it's like, it's
Beautiful.
eye-opening. So yeah, like when you said self-love
So
right
good.
away, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what,
There we
I'm
go.
totally about that.
So I'm going to give you a quick anecdote from the beginning even of this year. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. As we're recording this podcast, we're still in 2024. Whenever it comes
Mhm.
out, might be 2025 already. But the beginning of this year, I went through the roughest financial setback and emotional and physical setback of my entire life.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
really, up until that moment, I was like, there's no way it can get, there's no way something like this could happen to me. And
mhm.
then it happened, right? Obviously, I was
Yeah.
challenging my own like perceptions and, challenging the universe, maybe let's say.
Mhm.
So of course it happened.
Of course.
And right. And throughout that entire journey, you know, with everything that was part of it, I was having suicidal thoughts. Excuse me, for saying that without a trigger warning, but I was having these thoughts, not intentionally, but they were just coming into my head as something, and I'm like, where did this come from? That's not me. But I knew that I was. They wouldn't have come if I hadn't been so exhausted
Mm,
that it
mhm.
felt like something I would be grateful for in the moment.
It was almost like burned out, right? Like it was just too much at that
100%
point.
burnout. Yeah,
Yeah.
100% in a big way. And
Life
throughout
reset
the
button.
entire thing, yeah, 100% life reset. And throughout the entire thing, you know, the one thing that kept me going was understanding that again, nothing happens by accident. Everything that's happening has a reason. Everything. And looking for the proof and knowing that okay, we are living on a spectrum, right? There's joy and then there's
Mm,
pain, both sides of
right.
a spectrum, right?
And anywhere in between.
And everywhere it's a spectrum, right? Everywhere in the
Mhm.
between, right?
Mhm.
And the spectrum is a capacity that we have, right?
Mhm.
To feel joy and to feel pain into the other direction equally, right? And that capacity can grow, obviously. Now, that capacity is being stretched and grows mostly or most aware, like consciously for us when we're in the
Mhm.
pain bit. That's
Right.
when we feel the depth of life, right?
Mhm.
It feels profound. It feels so intense. Because when we're happy, we're like, oh, we're happy, we're airy fairy, we're
Right.
having a good time. We're not as conscious of it, you
Right.
know? It takes a moment of meditation and becoming aware of like, oh my God, you are right now living your absolutely best life. But how many people do that in these moments, right? But
True.
when we're sad or we're in pain, we're so aware of it. We're hyper
Mhm.
aware of it. And that's where our capacity to feel generally, not just pain, but also joy into the other direction, because again, it's a
Right.
capacity, it's a spectrum,
Right.
is being stretched. And so I was here. I was
Mhm.
in the pain, deep. I was like, all right, how far can I go? What's my capacity? Can I
Right.
stretch it beyond? I'm already here, right? How,
Right.
how
Can you
deep can
push?
we go?
Mhm.
Can I push it so that I know that on the other side, I will have more capacity? And because everything in our reality is about balance, the pendulum will at some
Swing
point.
back. Yeah. Well,
There
you
you
know
go.
what? Again, not to tie
There
it
you go.
back to engineering and physics and everything, but it's like that's one of the like Newtonian laws, right? Like it's gonna be an equal
100%.
and opposite force, right? So I mean,
Exactly.
it makes total sense that if you stretch
Exactly.
as far one way, then it's gonna go the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And the
that's a
beautiful
natural
thing is,
process.
100%. The beautiful thing is, this is where we can tap into the supernatural. That's the
Mhm.
fun bit. That's the meta, the higher logic that we start working with in these moments is like, okay, let's say you are in this. You're learning all the lessons. Here's what you're
Mhm,
doing when you're learning all the lessons when you're here. You
mhm,
are slowing down the momentum. So let's say you are in the deep. You're in the, I'm going to give you an analogy so people can understand more easily,
mhm,
right? You're in the deep,
right.
you're in the pain. Your train, let's say, is going full steam ahead into that pain,
Mhm,
right? Full steam ahead.
right.
When you start learning the lessons and you start doing the inner work in that direction still,
Mhm,
it's slowing down the train, and
mhm,
you're slowing it down more and you're slowing it down more until it comes to a standstill. And then you can drive it into the other direction.
mhm.
So that's a power we have. Instead of allowing the pendulum to just swing, which it will, but then it'll
Right,
also swing back.
right,
It will swing back less. Again, physics. So you will be
right.
less in the pain, even though you would have still the same capacity. But just
But
because
you
momentum
don't
dictates,
right, just
right?
because you have that, you don't go there. Yeah.
But just because the pendulum can swing that way doesn't necessarily mean that it has to, if you know how to stop it in the
It
middle.
reminds me of a sort of a credit card, right? Like you have this limit of what you can spend and borrow, but you don't necessarily have to go the full
You
amount,
don't
like
have to
after
go
you've learned
exactly.
right. So
And
I
if
mean that
you, so
it can be
again,
applied to
like a
so
credit card,
much. Yeah.
yeah, if you learn how to make balanced spending decisions in the
Right.
credit card analogy,
Right.
right? You will never be in the minus ever,
Right. Right.
right?
And slowly
So
you can probably work your way into the plus at some point.
it's 100%,
Yeah,
right? Now, of course, we're gonna have days where we stretch it, right? But
true.
we're talking about the average here, the overall average. Like
Right.
whether you're all the way this way as an average with your pendulum all the time,
Mm,
or whether your average is slowly coming closer to the middle. And the way
right.
we do that, the way we find the middle is by understanding our values, by understanding who we are, understanding why we're here, working on
And
ourselves, definition,
channeling, right.
yeah,
Channeling
and then
meditation and
aligning with our
becoming
truth.
authentic. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. And
And the
honestly, it's
more
like a
truthful we become, that's the
yeah,
middle. That's the balance.
exactly. Exactly. And
That's what
that's
things about.
so such a fitting way to I think kind of wrap up this session is to talk about that balance because like as a Libra constellation type, like
There you go.
my symbol is the scales, right? Like the balance. And like I've always been
There you
like
go.
even when I've been out of balance, I've been thinking about it and always wanting to go that way, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just like that's the way to do it. And I think that's why sometimes life does have the reset button because sometimes you need an external force to put you back in balance and to realize hey I can turn this off, I can
Around.
stop going this full speed towards you know towards the wrong path and
And
reverse it.
again, it is not an external force, it's an internal force of your
That's
higher mind that's understanding,
exactly
okay, well, he didn't understand the memo, the hint that I was giving him. Okay, let's pull the emergency
right,
brake, bring the train
right.
to a standstill
And
so we can
exactly,
make
that's such a good
decisions
point.
to,
It's such a
you
good
know
point
what I
because
mean?
it's your own body that's doing it. So I mean,
There
like
you
it's such a to me that's kind of the revelation of this, and I'm going to have to learn more. Is like realizing that well, that was you too. That was your body saying
go.
we're
Yeah.
shutting this down, we're resetting and going the other way. Yeah,
And like that's,
perfect.
the power, especially when you have someone that kind of understands this system, like me in your back pocket is, and this is just why it's been working so well for my clients, is that when
Mhm,
these situations then come up in their everyday life,
mhm,
they can reach into their back pocket, they can say, hey, Yael, I'm going through this right now. How do I view this situation? How can I define the situation differently from what my impulses are dictating me? And then
right,
we go through it and we change the definition, and that changes the outcome.
exactly.
It's so powerful. I
It
have seen
it's
people heal.
it really is, and I feel like we're scratching the surface of it. I mean, there's so much depth here
Entirely.
to get
Yeah,
into. Yeah, yeah.
good.
Well, man, that's fascinating. Well, I think we have a good start on our discussions here, but I could see some future chats too about it.
I love
So,
that. That would be amazing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And,
Well,
you know, if
yeah, thank you
people
for joining in. Yeah, well, I'm definitely
yeah,
excited
um,
to re-listen and get this out to the people and help.
cheers.
Yeah.
And
No, that
if
sounds
people
great.
wanna find me, um,
Yeah,
what we can do is I can drop a link so that you can book yourself in. It's a free 20-minute, you know,
definitely.
coffee chat. It's super
Mhm.
non-obligation, just I wanna meet you, hear your story. And if people are interested in my book, then that is also something that I can share. It's called The Transformation
Perfect.
Playbook, mainly about health transformation, but has a lot to do with the mind, and it's written in a really playful, humorous way.
Well,
So
that's great. I'm always a fan of and a supporter of humor, so definitely
there
want
you
to
go,
get
me
that
too.
get out there. But yeah, that's perfect. I'll share, your links, your
Mhm.
Instagram, your thread space, and yeah.
Yeah.